Welcome back to High Gain Guitar Academy. My name is Neil, and today we're going to learn our major chords. Major meaning happy sounding chords, okay? I feel like if you know all your happy, major, and sad minor chords, there are literally millions of songs you can play. Now, of course, there are tons of other kinds of chords, but we're gonna start simple with the most common two moods of chords, which are major and minor, happy and sad. Today is about the happy. I'm gonna give you some tricks and some options on how to play them that I've kind of developed over the years that I've seen other people do, because typically with an instrument like guitar, there's several ways you can do something. It's just figuring out the way that works best for you, meaning what works in your brain, what works for your hands, because everybody's a little different, right? So let's get going. Now we're gonna learn these chords alphabetically, not in order of easiest to hardest, so if you need to skip around in the video and come back to a few, that's totally fine. We're gonna start out with the A chord, A major. Keep in mind, not all the chords will use all of the strings. For example, the A chord starts from your second biggest string and goes through the rest of them. We don't use the big E. We're just gonna start from the second string, which is the A, and we're gonna use all the rest of the strings. So, play the A string open. No frets need to be held down on that string, just open A. Following that, on the second fret of the D string with your pointer. So the D string is the third string down. You're gonna put your pointer finger on the 2. Now remember, it doesn't have to be right in the middle of the fret as long as you're not on the lines, right? It's just like coloring. You know, when you're a kid and you're learning to color, you want to try and stay in the lines. Well, that's all we really got to do here. Just don't be too on the lines. But you can move it back a little to give yourself some more room for the next finger, the middle finger. It's going to go on the 2 of the G. So the same fret, but a string down. 2 of the G. Notice how my pointer finger has been moved back some to give me a little bit room for the middle finger on the next string. Now my middle finger, it's going to go right in the middle of that fret, because I'm gonna need my ring finger on the 2 of the B string next, okay? So all 3 of these fingers gotta be on the second fret, just 3 different strings. So holding pointer on 2 of the D, middle on 2 of the G, and ring on 2 of the B. Your little E string at the end, that's gonna stay open. So what we need to do, instead of leaning our fingers down to where that finger is touching the E, see, it won't make any sound. We need to stand these guys up on their fingertips. Now, the best way to get good at that is take your thumb and put it on the back of the neck. If we put our thumb on the back of the guitar neck, even maybe on the lower part, it forces your fingers to stand up a little more straight, right? They arch up. So the thumb on the back of the neck, probably the lower part of the neck, that's the best way to get your fingers to stand up straight so they're not touching the other strings. Okay, now that we've got everybody in place, we're going to play from the A string down, the second string down. If something sounds off, try playing the strings one at a time until you find the bad one. If all the strings are sounding and making a tone, but it still doesn't sound right, then maybe your fingers are in the wrong spot. So check your fret hand, make sure you're on the correct strings. You always want to make sure that the strings you're picking match with the strings you're holding down. And that is our A major chord. Now most of these chords we're going to apply the same rules we just talked about with A. So let's move on to B. B, I'm not gonna lie, B is a little bit more difficult than a lot of these, but we're gonna get it out of the way, okay? So if you can't do this one right away, totally cool, come back to it later, but let's give it a try. For the B chord, your pointer finger goes on the 2 of the A string. That's your second string. Now here's where it gets a little tricky. We're gonna do 3 fingers just like we did with the A chord, but this time we're gonna be on the 4th fret. We're gonna put our middle finger on the 4 of the D. That's your 3rd string down on the 4th fret, followed by your ring finger on the 4th fret of the G string, followed by your pinky on the 4th fret of the B string. Now for this chord, we just want to strum the middle 4 strings, A, D, G, and B. We're not gonna strum the big E or the little E, okay? That's a B chord. Now, it's a little tricky to hold your pointer on the 2 and these 3 fingers on the 4. It's kind of hard to do. Like I said, the B is not the easiest chord. One thing that I do is I bar some of the other strings with one or maybe two fingers. Now, barring is where you use a finger to lay over several strings. For example, if I needed to play all second frets, instead of using a different finger for every one of them, I could use my pointer finger, just lay it down over all the strings. That's called barring. Okay, we'll get more into that later. But for now, if I want to bar those fourth frets on those strings, I can use my pinky over all three. I can use my ring over all three. I can use my pinky on two of them and maybe my ring on one of them. And this is actually the one I see most commonly. So let's try this. Pointer on the 2 of the A string. Ring finger on the 4 of the D string. That's your 3rd string down. And now your pinky is going to bar the G and the B. Hold them both down with your pinky on the 4th fret. Your little E string, you don't have to worry about laying your fingers down and touching that string because we're not playing it. So let's just strum the middle 4 strings. Again, I know this one's hard. Stick with it, keep practicing. As you work through these chords, your fingers will get stronger. You'll develop more muscle memory, so it's easy to remember where they are. It will get better. I know this is kind of the frustrating part of guitar, but once you know these basics, you'll be able to play literally millions of songs. Moving on to the C chord. We're gonna start with our pointer finger on the 1 of the B string. The B is your 5th one down. It's the 2nd smallest string, right? So pointer on the 1 of the B string. Now your middle finger is gonna go on the 2 of the D. We're gonna skip right over that G, go to the 2 of the D string with your middle finger. Followed by the 3 of the A string with your ring finger, okay? So we're gonna strum from the A string down. That's the 2nd biggest string down. That's your C chord. Now again, this chord, you want the fingers to kind of be on their tips, so move that thumb to the back of the neck so your fingers arch up and stand up a little bit. Notice how my fingers are kind of in an angle? It's totally normal. They don't have to be straight up and down. Now, one thing people don't think about often is the angle of your elbow and your arm while you're playing guitar. Notice my angle of my elbow it's in tight to my body. That gives my hand a little bit more angle to get to these frets for the C chord. That's a C chord. Moving on to the D chord. I call this one the triangle chord. Why? Because it has 3 points, okay? So here's what we're gonna do for a D chord. The D string is gonna stay open, followed by your pointer finger on the 2 of the G, ring finger on the 3 of the B, followed by your middle finger on the 2 of the little E. So we've got 2, 3, 2, boom, 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 little triangle. So again, that's pointer on the 2 of the G, ring finger on the 3 of the B, middle finger on the 2 of the little E. The D string stays open like I mentioned, so we're just gonna strum these last 4 strings, D down through the smallest ones. Again, if a chord's not sounding right, check to make sure you're on the right frets, and also pick through the strings one at a time until you find the one that's not sounding right. It's like process of elimination. Okay, that was our D chord. Now we're gonna move to E. To me, E is one of the easiest chords. We'll call it E for easy. So here's what we're gonna do. Your pointer finger goes on the 1 of the G string. That's the 4th one down, 1 of the G with your pointer finger. Now your middle finger is gonna go on the 2 of the D, 2 of the D with the middle finger, followed by 2 of the A with your ring finger. Again, I'm making room by moving my middle finger kind of towards the beginning of the fret of the 2nd fret, and my ring finger is gonna go a little bit more towards the top of it so they can both fit in there. These lower frets are pretty wide, so you can fit all your fingers in there pretty easily, and I've got pretty big hands. You might want to move your thumb to the back of the neck. You might see sometimes my thumb hangs over the top and my palm is holding the neck. It's because I've got big hands. Again, you have to kind of find what works for you. So these are 2 different ways that you can experiment with it. Your palm against the neck if you've got bigger hands, or your thumb on the back of the neck, like so, to kind of pinch the neck in between your fingers. That gives it a little pushback, a little pressure to help press the strings down. Now that we've got all our fingers in place, pointer on the 1 of the G, middle on the 2 of the D, and ring on the 2 of the A, we're gonna strum all the strings for this chord. This is one of the few chords that uses all of the strings together. That's a nice full sounding chord. That's an E major. Okay, moving on to F. F is what I call a stair step chord because it's literally 1, 2, 3, okay? So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna start with our pointer finger. It's going to actually bar the last 2 little strings on the 1st fret. So you're gonna hold down both of those strings, the B and the little E, with your pointer finger. This is actually good practice to start with barring, just holding those last 2 strings. Your middle finger then goes on the 2 of the G, and your ring finger goes on the 3 of the D. So your pointer finger has to keep barring those last 2 little strings on the 1st fret while your middle is on the 2 of the G, ring on the 3 of the D, okay? Kind of tough, but again, notice how I'm coming in at an angle, my elbow's in tight to my body, and if you need to lean into it a little bit too, that's totally fine. Some of these chords force you to kind of like lean different ways to make your fingers do these pretzel-y shapes. Okay, so for the F chord, we're gonna strum from the D string down. That's the 3rd string down. That's an F chord. Okay, that brings us to the final of our major chords, the G. I like the G, it's the only other chord that uses all of the strings, okay? Now the G is unique in that you're gonna start with your middle finger on the big E string on the 3rd fret, okay? Middle finger, big E string, 3rd fret. Now your pointer finger is gonna go on the 2 of the A right next to it. These guys are gonna be neighbors. So middle finger on 3 of the E, pointer finger on 2 of the A. Now we're gonna skip all the way down to the other side of the field. Your pinky is definitely gonna go on the 3 of the little E. So it's gotta go way down to the other side here, pinky on the 3 of the little E. Now your pinky, I know we don't typically use that a lot in everyday life, so it's a little hard to control, but the more you practice this, the more control and strength your pinky will have. Maybe we could practice doing like some pinky push-ups, I don't know, whatever works for you. So, pinky on the 3rd fret of the little E. You play all the strings, and that's a G chord. There's 2 versions of the G chord. You kind of pick which one you want. I think the more textbook version is what we've just placed our fingers on. Now, I like to do the G by adding my middle finger onto the 3 of the B. It's a very slight difference. I'm sure some music theory majors would tell you that's a different chord. I don't know. I've always been taught that that was a G chord, or you could take your ring finger out. I prefer that one, but it's up to you. Either no ring finger or add the ring finger. So those are your major and minor chords. Let's run through them one more time just to kind of recap. Here's A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. There you go, guys. Those are all your major chords. I know that was quick and you're gonna need some time to work on these. Listen, it takes months to get these chords down, maybe longer, you know, to really get them smooth and memorized and be able to play them all without any weird buzzing or missing notes. It takes a while. These are a fundamental skill that you will carry with you your entire guitar life, okay? So don't feel bad that it's gonna take you a little time. These are the best exercise for strength building, muscle memory, and for learning how to play songs. Like, you can't play basketball if you don't know how to dribble, right? I mean, it's just the basic function of playing guitar. There you go, major chords. Stay tuned for the next video about minor chords. Take it, love it, learn it, use it. I'll see you soon.